Let me tell you a story. Not just a story about selling, but about life, failure, and becoming something greater than you ever imagined. This is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. But don't let the title fool you. This isn't just about business or making money. It's about how a poor boy becomes the greatest salesman in the world, and how that journey can change the way we live our own lives. Our story begins with a boy named Hafid. Now, Hafid doesn't start as a great man. In fact, he starts at the very bottom. He's a camel boy, working in the desert for a wealthy merchant named Pathros. His job is simple: take care of the camels, follow orders, stay out of trouble. Nothing special. But Pathros is different. He's not just rich, he's wise. He watches Hafid closely, almost like he's waiting for something Hafid himself doesn't understand yet. Hafid, like any young man, has dreams. He wants more than just a life of carrying loads and following caravans. He wants respect. He wants success. He wants to become somebody. And one day, he gathers the courage to ask Pathros for a chance. He asks him to teach him the secret of selling, the secret of becoming successful. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Pathros doesn't give him gold. He doesn't give him business secrets. He doesn't even give him a big opportunity. Instead, he gives Hafid something very simple, almost disappointing: a single robe. And then he sends him to a distant city with one instruction: sell it. That's it. No explanation, no guidance, no backup plan. Just sell it. Hafid is confused, even frustrated. He expected something big, something powerful, but he still obeys. So he travels to the city, full of confidence at first. He thinks selling a robe will be easy, but reality hits hard. Nobody wants it. He walks through streets full of people who ignore him. Some laugh at him. Some don't even look at him. Days pass. Hunger grows. Confidence breaks. And slowly, Hafid starts realizing something painful. Selling is not as easy as it looks. It's not just about having something to sell. It's about understanding people. Understanding what they need, when they need it, and why they should care. And for the first time in his life, Hafid feels small, almost ready to give up. But just when everything seems lost, something changes. A woman approaches him. She is not rich. She is not powerful. She is simply in need. And she sees value in the robe, not as a luxury, but as warmth. Hafid sells it to her, and that moment, that small, simple sale, becomes the first real lesson of his life. Because he realizes something important. Every person carries a need, even if it's hidden. And success begins when you learn to see that need. When Hafid returns, he expects praise. But Pathros doesn't celebrate him. Instead, he prepares him for something even bigger. And Hafid has no idea yet. This is only the beginning of his transformation. Hafid returns from the city carrying something he never expected. Not wealth, not pride, but understanding. He has sold the robe. It is not a dramatic success. It is small, almost ordinary. Yet, something inside him quietly shifts. He walks back to Pathros, believing he will finally be praised, maybe even rewarded. After all, he endured rejection, hunger, and humiliation. He completed the task. But Pathros does not react as Hafid expects. There are no celebrations, no smiles, only silence and observation. Pathros looks at him as if he is not seeing a successful salesman, but someone still unfinished. Then he says softly, "You have taken your first step, but you still do not understand what you are becoming." Hafid is confused. To him, selling meant persuading people, finding the right buyer, or relying on luck. Pathros slowly begins to dismantle this belief. He explains that most people fail not because they lack products, but because they fail to understand human nature. A salesman does not push goods. A true salesman connects with desire, and desire is invisible unless one learns how to see it. To test him again, Pathros gives Hafid another robe and another journey, but this time, everything feels different. Hafid no longer walks with confidence. The desert wind feels heavier. Each step feels like it carries a lesson he has not yet understood. Still, he goes. When he reaches the city, he does not rush. He watches instead. He observes faces, studies emotions, and notices the small details he once ignored. Slowly, he begins to understand. People do not buy with logic alone. They buy with emotion. A mother wants comfort for her child. A poor man seeks dignity. A tired worker desires relief, not luxury. For the first time, Hafid sees people, not targets. And everything changes. The second sale does not come quickly. He fails again and again. But now, each rejection teaches him, instead of breaking him. He learns patience. He learns observation. He learns that silence can be more powerful than words. Eventually, an opportunity appears. Not forced, not chased, but naturally revealed, because he is finally aware. He sells again, and this time, it does not feel like luck. It feels like awareness. When he returns to Pathros, something has changed. He is no longer just a boy following instructions. He is beginning to think like a salesman and like a student of human nature. But Pathros knows this is still not enough. Greatness is not built in one lesson or two. It is built through repetition, discipline, and the breaking of old limits. And so, Pathros prepares him for something deeper, something that will not only change how he sells, but how he lives. Hafid does not yet know it. The real transformation has only just begun. Hafid thought he had already learned something valuable. He had sold the sacred robe more than once, and with each sale he began to change. He saw people differently, understood them better, and moved through life with more awareness. But Pathros was not finished with him. What Hafid had learned so far was only the beginning. One evening, as the desert sun set and silence fell over the caravans, Pathros called Hafid closer. His voice was different, calm, serious, almost sacred. Hafid knew something important was coming. Pathros said, "You are ready to learn what most men will never understand." Then he spoke about habits, repetition, and self-control. He explained that success is not created in big moments, but in small actions repeated every day when no one is watching. Then he placed 10 ancient scrolls in Hafid's hands. They looked simple, but Pathros treated them like treasure. Hafid asked what they were for. Pathros replied, "These are the laws of success, but they only work if you follow them daily without fail." Each scroll had to be read every morning and every night. No excuses. Hafid expected secrets of trade or wealth. Instead, he was given discipline. Pathros said most people fail not because they lack knowledge, but because they cannot stay consistent long enough. Then he said, "Words have no power unless you act on them repeatedly." From that day, Hafid changed. He read the scrolls every day. At first, it felt repetitive, but slowly it began to shape him. He became more focused, more patient, more aware of his actions. He stopped reacting quickly and started thinking first. He began to understand that success is not luck. It is discipline, but he still didn't fully understand what Pathros was building in him, because these scrolls were not just about success. They were about transformation. And Pathros made it clear. You become great not by reading once, but by living these lessons every day. That night, Hafid held the scrolls tightly. For the first time, he felt responsibility. He was no longer just a boy learning a skill. He was being shaped into something greater, and the real journey had only just begun. Hafid's life was no longer the same after receiving the 10 scrolls. At first, he treated them like instructions, something to follow and complete. But Pathros made it clear, these were not ordinary lessons. They were a way of life. Every morning, Hafid read the scrolls. Every night, he read them again. Not casually, but with discipline. At first, his mind resisted. Why repeat the same words daily? Why not learn something new? But Pathros believed greatness is not built through variety, but through consistency. Slowly, something changed. The words stopped being information and became belief. The first scroll taught habits, how a man becomes what he repeatedly does. The second taught love, treating every person with respect, because every sale begins with connection. The third taught persistence. Failure is not the end, but a step towards strength. Hafid changed from within. He no longer rushed conversations. He no longer feared rejection the same way. He began to understand selling was not pressure, but patience. But knowing is not the same as mastering. So Pathros sent him back into the world, with more responsibility and less guidance. "Now," Pathros said, "you must live what you have learned." Hafid entered the city again, but he was different. Still, people ignored him. Some rejected him. Some doubted him. But Hafid had changed inside. Instead of reacting, he observed. Instead of feeling defeated, he learned. Every rejection became a lesson. Every silence became a message. He realized something deeper. People don't buy products. They buy emotions inside decisions. A tired man buys relief. A lonely woman buys comfort. A proud merchant buys status. And Hafid understood. When you understand people, you don't need to force anything. You connect. After many attempts, he made another sale. This time, no surprise, no luck, only preparation. Selling became part of who he was. When he returned, Pathros listened silently. For the first time, there was approval. But the training continued. Understanding is not enough, Pathros said. Many understand the scrolls. Few live them under pressure. Hafid realized he was not being trained for comfort, but for mastery. And mastery demands identity change. The final transformation was still ahead. By now, Hafid was no longer the same boy who once doubted himself in the desert. The scrolls had changed him slowly, quietly, but permanently. Each day of reading, each moment of failure, each rejection in the marketplace, everything had started shaping him into something different. Not just a salesman, but a thinker, a learner, a man who could understand people without being told. Still, Pathros remained strict, because true mastery is never rushed. One morning, Pathros called Hafid to him with unusual seriousness. The air felt different, as if something important was about to change. He said, "You have learned to read the scrolls. You have learned to observe people. But now, you must learn something greater." Hafid listened carefully. Pathros continued, "You must learn control. Control over emotion. Control over fear. Control over failure." Then he gave Hafid another challenge. He sent him once again into the world. Not as a beginner, but not yet as a master either. This time, Hafid entered the city with quiet confidence. He was no longer desperate. He was no longer confused. He simply observed. And something remarkable started happening. People responded differently to him. Not because the world had changed, but because he had changed. His calmness made people listen. His patience made people trust him. His understanding made people open up. For the first time, Hafid wasn't chasing sales. Sales were coming to him naturally, because he was connecting with people on a deeper level. But the scrolls were also teaching him something else, something even more important. Success is not a single act. It is a lifestyle, a way of thinking, a discipline that does not stop when results appear. And Hafid began to realize that most people fail not because they lack opportunity, but because they cannot control themselves long enough to grow into it. Still, Pathros was not fully satisfied yet, because Hafid had not yet faced the greatest test of all, the test of identity. Not what he does, but who he becomes when no one is guiding him. One evening, Pathros looked at Hafid and said something that stayed with him forever. Many men can succeed under instruction, but only a few can succeed after instruction ends. Hafid did not fully understand what that meant yet, but he would soon, because Pathros was preparing him for separation, for independence, for a life where Hafid would no longer rely on guidance, but on the principles that had been planted inside him. And that is when Hafid finally begins to realize the truth. The scrolls were never about selling robes. They were about building a man who could succeed in anything he touched. And now, the final stage of his transformation is near. But before greatness, there is always a test. And Hafid's final test is still waiting in silence. Hafid could feel it. Something was changing, not in the world, but around him, in Pathros's silence, in the way his master looked at him, longer each day, as if he were no longer just a student, but something approaching completion. Time was nearing its final turn. One day, Pathros called him. No task, no scroll, only stillness. Then he said quietly, "You are ready." Hafid said nothing, but inside, he understood this was no longer about selling. It was about becoming. Pathros continued, "Everything I had, I have given you. But the real test was never in the scrolls. It was in you." Then Hafid finally saw the truth. The scrolls were never magic or shortcuts. They were lessons in shaping a man who could stay steady when life became uncertain. And then Pathros revealed something deeper. The scrolls were never meant to be kept. They were meant to be passed on, because wisdom that is not shared dies with the one who holds it. From that day, Hafid changed. He no longer just observed people. He understood them. He no longer feared rejection. He accepted it as part of life, not failure. Slowly, he became what Pathros had always seen. Not just a student, but a master in the making. Then came the moment no one escapes. Pathros fell ill. The strong mentor weakened, and Hafid stayed by his side, knowing he could not stop what was coming. In his final moments, Pathros whispered, "Do not chase wealth alone. Wealth is only a tool. What matters is what you become." Then he added, "The world does not reward knowledge. It rewards action at the right moment." And then he passed away. Silence remained, but so did the 10 scrolls. Now Hafid understood them fully, not as instructions, but as a way of life. I will form good habits. I will greet each day with love. I will persist until I succeed. I will see myself as a miracle. I will live as if today is my last. I will master my emotions. I will laugh at the world. I will increase my value. I will act now. I will seek guidance. Years passed. Hafid became the greatest salesman in the world, not because he sold the most, but because he understood people the most. He built wealth, but more importantly, he built meaning. And in the end, he realized Pathros's true gift was never the scrolls. It was transformation, the making of a man who could master himself. And he understood the deepest truth. Success is not what you achieve. It is who you become while achieving it.